The harsh fluorescent lights of the federal holding facility hummed, casting long shadows across the polished concrete floor. Julian Astor watched his rival through the reinforced glass, a smirk playing on his lips. Elias Vance, the city's golden boy, now looked pale and drawn in a standard-issue gray jumpsuit. His dark hair was disheveled, and the sight of him, so thoroughly defeated, sent a thrill of vindictive pleasure through Julian. He leaned into the intercom, his voice a low drawl. He mused aloud whether the great Elias Vance was always this dull, even in more intimate settings. The memory of their last public clash, a fiery debate at the city council that had left Elias victorious, was still fresh. Julian had longed for this moment, to see the unshakable man finally brought to his knees. He was about to add another taunt when shimmering, electric blue text materialized in his vision, hovering over Elias's head. Antagonist provocation protocol initiated. Fatal error imminent. Male lead power ascension will result in antagonist's complete destruction. The words were followed by more scrolling text, which he somehow understood were live commentary from an unseen audience. This spoiled brat is so satisfyingly evil. Can't wait for the revenge arc. Elias is reborn. Julian Astor has maybe a week left before his world comes crashing down. A tremor of pure terror shot through Julian. He stared at Elias, who was now looking back with a calm, unreadable expression. Slowly, Julian straightened up, his smirk vanishing. Elias tilted his head, his voice raspy when he spoke through the crackling speaker. He asked what Mr. Astor truly wanted from him. Julian had come to gloat, to savor the victory, perhaps even offer a humiliating bailout deal. But now the flashing text dominated his thoughts. It pieced together a horrifying narrative. He was the villain in a story where Elias, the hero, was living a second chance at life. Elias would eventually rise to become one of the most powerful figures in the country, and his first act of vengeance would be the utter ruin of the Astor dynasty. And Julian, the story's primary obstacle, would be made an example of. He flinched as if struck. The text continued to scroll. In the first timeline, Elias almost had his happy ending with the senator's daughter. Julian dragged him down in his final moments. So pathetic. The villain is just obsessed with the hero's body. The heroine is true love. Elias must have thought Julian was having a seizure, calling his name again with a note of uncertainty. Julian took another look at him. Even in prison grays, bruised and betrayed, there was an undeniable magnetism to Elias Vance, a quiet intensity that Julian had always secretly admired and coveted. The desire he'd felt was real, but faced with the promise of a miserable end, it evaporated into cold fear. Survival was now the only priority. Julian cleared his throat, forcing a casual tone. He commented on the durability of the facility's jumpsuits, a ridiculous, nonsensical observation about where one might procure such sturdy fabric. For the first time, Elias Vance looked genuinely confused. A flicker of something, shock, bewilderment, and perhaps a sliver of disappointment, crossed his features before he named the government contractor that supplied the uniforms. The text in Julian's vision flared again. What is the villain planning now? He's supposed to be forcing himself on the hero, causing immense psychological trauma that only the heroine can heal. Julian's silence was heavy. He wasn't planning anything nefarious. He was just a man trying to steer his life away from a predetermined catastrophe. Elias pressed, asking again why he was really there. Of course, it wasn't about the fabric. It was about saving his own skin. Julian signaled to the guard, who brought in 2 insulated bags from a high-end delicatessen. He spread the containers on the small visiting table, explaining that he'd noticed Elias looked like he was losing weight and had brought some decent food. It was the truth. Despite their public rivalry, they had a long, complicated history. He poured a glass of expensive electrolyte water, suggesting they could use this opportunity to bury the hatchet. He even offered a future alliance, hoping that when Elias eventually regained his power, he would remember this small kindness. Elias watched him, his expression unreadable, before taking the glass and drinking it in one smooth motion. The text in Julian's vision exploded with activity. Here we go. It's happening. In the first timeline, the villain gives him the drugged drink here. Julian froze. The drink that had been a gift from his friend Leo, the president's notoriously reckless son, who had told him it was a custom blend of vitamins and stimulants that would be beneficial for someone under extreme stress. Julian looked up to see a flush rising on Elias's pale cheeks. His eyes, usually cool and analytical, were now dark and intense. In a split second of panic, Julian turned to run, but a hand shot out and clamped around his wrist. Elias pulled him back with surprising strength, his face burying into the curve of Julian's neck. His voice was a low murmur against Julian's skin, informing him that one couldn't start a fire and then simply walk away. Julian stammered that it was a mistake, a misunderstanding, that he would get a doctor. Before he could finish, Elias's lips were on his, silencing him. The scent of antiseptic and something uniquely Elias filled his senses. His mind was a maelstrom of confusion and fear, his body refusing to obey his command to push away. The text scrolled lazily before his eyes as his consciousness began to fade. The hero is reborn, so why would he drink it again? Why, indeed. He was the hero. He had all the memories of the first timeline. Everything was supposedly under his control. Julian knew nothing. He was just the villain, stumbling through a script he couldn't even read. The disparity was infuriating. After fleeing the detention center that day, Julian became a recluse, holing up in the sprawling Astor family estate on the coast. The occasional flicker of predictive text kept him in a constant state of anxiety. The villain's fate is actually kind of tragic. In the last timeline, Elias thought Julian orchestrated the whole frame-up. When he got out, he shattered Julian's leg. A cold sweat broke out on Julian's forehead in the warm spring air. The old family butler, Reynolds, hurried across the manicured lawn, his face alight with rare excitement. He announced that Mr. Vance's case had been overturned and that he was on his way to the estate to personally thank Julian for his help. He was already waiting in the grand hall. Julian's heart sank. He told Reynolds to pack a bag. The butler, misunderstanding, beamed and complimented Julian's choice of a casual cashmere sweater, insisting Mr. Vance would find it appealing. Everyone knew about Julian's public obsession with Elias. It had started years ago, when Elias was a scholarship student selling his art on a street corner to pay for his father's medical bills. Julian had intervened when a rival family's oafish son started harassing him, effectively rescuing Elias by sweeping him into his chaotic, privileged world. He'd been captivated by the quiet intensity in Elias's eyes and the fierce talent in his hands. He had brought Elias back to the empty, echoing Astor mansion. Julian's own past was complicated, the forgotten son of a secret affair. He was only brought into the family to inherit the name after his father and older half-brother died in a tragic accident. He didn't know how to handle the sudden wealth and power, so he indulged in every whim. He'd showered Elias with gifts, demanding his constant companionship, blind to the resentment growing in the other man's eyes. While Julian partied, Elias studied, graduating top of his class from law school and immediately using his newfound position to publicly denounce Julian's hedonistic lifestyle. That was the start of their feud. Julian, hurt and rejected, had retaliated with petty political attacks. And now, the man he'd both tormented and secretly admired, the man who was destined to destroy him, was waiting in his living room. Julian looked at Reynolds with grim finality. He clarified that he meant pack a bag to run away. The elderly butler looked aghast as Julian pointed towards a service tunnel hidden behind the wine cellar. There was no other way. Just as they reached the hidden door, a calm voice echoed from behind them. Julian turned to see Elias Vance standing there, looking perfectly composed in a tailored suit. He simply stated that he had come to offer his thanks. Then his gaze drifted to the tunnel entrance. He added, with a hint of dry amusement, that he hadn't realized his visit would prompt such an extreme reaction. The sight of him made Julian's right leg ache phantomatically. The blue text shimmered. "Is the villain kinda cute now? This isn't the right vibe. I ship it. A good enemies to lovers arc makes my day. He's still the villain. Elias is about to destroy him." Julian forced a smile that felt more like a grimace, mumbling that it was no problem. Reynolds, eager to avoid crawling through a tunnel, announced he would have the kitchen prepare lunch. The butler's words carried a note of nostalgia, mentioning how long it had been since Mr. Vance had stayed with them. Elias had lived at the estate for 3 years, and he had been kind to all the staff. Only Julian received his cold disdain. Sighing, Julian looked up and found Elias staring intently at his right leg. He instinctively took a step back, asking what he was looking at. Elias seemed to snap out of a trance, his gaze softening with a complex mix of emotions. He explained that Julian reminded him of an old friend who had a bad leg that always acted up in the rain. He trailed off, his voice filled with regret. Regret for what, Julian wondered. Elias finished quietly, regretting that he hadn't treated him better. The text exploded. What is happening? Did the hero lose his mind? Where's the heroine? The plot is broken. Don't worry, they meet at the charity gala in 3 days. It's all going according to plan. Julian felt a wave of relief. If that was the case, then all he had to do was make sure Elias and Isabel, the senator's daughter, got their storybook meeting. He would play matchmaker, secure his own safety, and then fade into the background. It was a perfect plan. The annual Foundation Gala was the pinnacle of the social season, held this year on a massive yacht cruising the bay at sunset. The deck was a sea of designer gowns and bespoke suits. From a secluded corner, Julian watched Elias standing with Marcus, the president's ambitious older son. Beside them, radiating charm, was Isabel. The text confirmed his thoughts. This is when the heroine falls for him at first sight. The view is so much better without the villain photobombing. Don't speak too soon. He's about to show up and push her into the ocean. Julian shrank back, determined to stay hidden. He was sipping a mocktail when a frantic voice called his name. It was Leo, Marcus's younger brother and Julian's partner in all things irresponsible. He grabbed Julian's arm, complaining that he'd been looking for him everywhere, and started pulling him towards the main group. Julian dug his heels in, telling Leo he wasn't in the mood for his games. He then remembered the spiked drink from the prison visit and demanded an explanation. Leo looked shifty, admitting he'd mixed up the vials. The one he gave Julian was meant for someone else. Julian's eyes widened in horrified realization. He hissed at Leo, asking if he was insane for trying to drug his own stone-cold, formidable brother. Leo just shrugged, retorting that Julian was hardly one to judge, given their shared history of absurd schemes. The text chimed in. Is the villain really reformed? This conversation feels wrong coming from him. Leo's life had also ended tragically in the first timeline. A pang of sympathy, of camaraderie, struck Julian. He decided to save his friend. He grabbed Leo, spinning a wild tale about needing to employ a hard-to-get strategy with Marcus, and dragged him towards a smaller, secondary boat tethered to the yacht. Leo, intrigued by the new scheme, waved goodbye to his brother across the water. The yacht, with its string lights and soft music, drifted slightly further away. The figures of Elias and Isabel became indistinct. Julian felt his tightly wound nerves finally begin to unwind. He and Leo shared a bottle of champagne, the cool sea breeze a welcome relief. A strange sense of déjà vu washed over him, and with it, a torrent of memories from the life that wasn't. He remembered the night of the coup, a torrential downpour mirroring the chaos in the capital. He, with his shattered leg, had dragged himself to the family mausoleum where Leo was interred. He poured a drink on the cold marble, his laughter turning into sobs. He remembered Elias finding him there, his wedding night interrupted. Elias had kicked the bottle from his hand, his voice cold as ice, accusing him of playing more games. Julian, in unbearable pain, physical and emotional, had simply congratulated him on his marriage and wished him well before turning and smashing his head against the sharp edge of the tombstone. The memory was so vivid it left him breathless. He shook his head, downing his champagne to clear it. He grabbed Leo's arm, his voice urgent, telling him a psychic had warned him to stay away from Marcus and Elias, that they were bad luck. Leo just gave him a look of profound pity and suggested he see a professional. Just then, a small launch pulled up alongside their boat. Isabel's bright laughter cut through the air as she and Marcus stepped aboard, teasing them for hiding away. Marcus explained that Isabel had found the main party dull and insisted on finding them. Julian stood mechanically, offering a polite but distant greeting. He stated that his past behavior had been inappropriate, and he would no longer presume to be so familiar with them. The text flickered wildly, a mix of confusion and morbid excitement. The villain's heart is finally dead. He looks so sad. You can tell he just wants to survive. It doesn't matter. The princess is about to fall in the water because of him, and his good days are over. As if on cue, a sudden gust of wind rocked the boats. Isabel stumbled, falling directly towards Julian. He reached out to catch her, but a sharp, unseen push sent them both tumbling into the dark, cold water. The villain's fate is to advance the hero's plot. Even if he awakens, it's useless. As he sank, sputtering in the icy water, Julian screamed in rage. Why was it always him? The text appeared cold and clinical. According to the timeline, he has 2 chapters left. Then, a face appeared above him in the murky depths. Elias. He pulled Julian close, pressing his lips to his to force air into his lungs, before hauling him back to the surface. On deck, chaos reigned. Isabel was already wrapped in a cashmere blanket, shivering and pale. Julian's first thought, as he coughed up seawater, was that something was wrong. In the first timeline, he had pushed her out of jealousy. This time, he hadn't. And as she fell towards him, he had seen a flash of raw hatred in her eyes. He was still wrapped in Elias's arms. He scrambled to his feet, thanking him formally. Elias's arms fell away, and he looked momentarily lost. He caught Julian's wrist again, his eyes tinged with red. He asked why Julian was being so distant, as if they were strangers. Julian feigned ignorance. Elias shook his head, a gesture of defeat. Julian told him he knew Elias had always looked down on him, and he was simply trying to stay out of his way now. Their paths were different. Elias was destined for greatness, and Julian just wanted a quiet life. The text was in an uproar. The villain said everything. What's the hero supposed to say? It's all messed up. Elias is supposed to save the heroine and Julian is supposed to be fished out by security guards. Elias's grip tightened. He looked directly into Julian's eyes, his voice low and intense. He insisted he had never looked down on Julian. He remembered the day Julian had saved him from humiliation, a debt he felt he could never repay. Julian's eyes lit up. He suggested that if Elias was truly grateful, a few $1,000,000 would go a long way towards helping the struggling Astor finances. Elias stared at him for a long moment. Then, to Julian's surprise, he nodded. Yes, he would do it. Despite his innocence, Isabel went straight to her powerful father. The scandal exploded. At the same time, a crisis was brewing overseas involving a major corporate asset transfer, and several of the security teams involved were formerly loyal to Julian's late father. The government, in a move of political calculation, decided that Julian, despite his reputation, was the perfect person to oversee the transfer. It was a punishment disguised as an honor. And to make matters worse, the president, fed up with Leo's antics, assigned him to the mission as well. The past was repeating itself. Julian remembered it all now. He remembered being ambushed in a remote data haven. He, with his broken leg, couldn't run. Leo had escaped but came back for him only to be captured. The corporate raider, a man named Kane, had held a gun to Leo's head and forced Julian to ignite a fire to destroy the servers, the grain. A moment later, a sniper's bullet had pierced Julian's hand, and the detonator had fallen. Marcus and Elias had appeared out of the smoke, their faces grim. Marcus had accused him of being the inside man. No one believed his desperate pleas that Leo was a hostage. On the transport back to the capital, he heard the news. Leo's body had been found. Marcus, in a stunning display of grief and rage, had led a hostile takeover of the rival corporation, personally ruining Kane and emerging as a hero. He was named the new heir apparent. Elias became his right-hand man. Julian was moved from a holding cell to a black site. He was interrogated endlessly. Then one day, Elias appeared, radiating a silent fury, and dragged him from the prison. The Astor estate had been seized, its assets frozen. Elias kept Julian a prisoner in his own minimalist, sterile penthouse, a gilded cage where he endured Elias's drunken, grief-stricken rage night after night. The day Elias married Isabel, Marcus had visited him. He had stared down at Julian, his voice dripping with venom, and said he wished he could kill him 1,000 times over for what he did to Leo. He sneered that the only reason Julian was still alive was because Elias had pulled every string imaginable to protect him. Julian, numb and broken, had laughed. He told Marcus that he was the one who had always wanted Leo out of the way, and now that his brother was dead, he could play the part of the grieving sibling. Marcus's face had gone pale with fury. That night, Julian had made his way to the mausoleum. And this time, he understood why. "Arg!" Julian screamed, bolting upright in his bed in the present day. This was a terrible past to remember. The text flickered faintly. Now that he's awake, he's really changing the plot. He didn't even get his leg broken this time. The text was right. The convoy mission was unavoidable, but things were different. In the first timeline, the ambush succeeded because of a mole. His first priority was to find the real traitor. The money from Elias arrived, a fortune in untraceable bearer bonds. It was perfect. As they were preparing to leave, Elias himself showed up, dressed in tactical gear, announcing that he had requested to join the security detail. He gave Julian a dazzling smile, telling the mister, After that, he looked forward to working with him. The text swooned. Is the hero peacocking for Julian? He was up all night reviewing security protocols and still had time for a custom suit. The man has energy. Julian managed a tight smile and said it was a pleasure to have him. As they neared the remote transfer point, a sudden storm forced the convoy to a halt. Julian was dozing in his armored vehicle when the door opened and Elias climbed inside, soaked to the skin. He claimed the storm was too intense and asked if he could take shelter. Rain dripped from his hair and jawline, making him look devastatingly vulnerable. The text went wild. The hero's fox-like seduction tactics are back online. He has his own vehicle. He deliberately stood in the rain to look pitiful. Julian handed him a towel, telling him to come in before he caught a cold. Elias grabbed his hand, his gaze burning. He started to say something, then stopped. They sat in silence, the drumming of the rain filling the space between them. Finally, Julian broke it. He told Elias he wasn't going to dance around it anymore. Since they both remembered the first timeline, they should just be honest. Elias's expression crumbled. He admitted, his voice rough with emotion, that he had hoped Julian wouldn't remember, that they could have a fresh start. But Julian's recent behavior, his distance, made it clear. Julian cut him off, saying the past didn't matter as much as the present. What mattered was ensuring the asset transfer was successful. He had a plan to expose the mole, but he needed Elias to trust him and hold his own forces back. Elias searched his face for a long moment, then nodded. He spoke into his wristcom, telling his hidden tactical team to stand down. Just like last time, after the rain stopped, they were ambushed. The corporate raider, Kane, captured Julian and Leo, holding Leo at gunpoint and ordering Julian to destroy the data drives. The security detail shouted for Julian to think carefully. Julian, his face a mask of anguish, activated the incendiary charge. The drives went up in a thermite-fueled inferno. Kane laughed triumphantly. He gestured to the shadows, and a figure emerged. It was Isabel, a smug smile on her face. Julian had been right. She gloated, saying it was a shame, but Leo had to be removed. As the daughter of a mere senator, her marriage prospects were limited, but by aligning with Kane and helping Marcus secure his position, she would be rewarded with unimaginable power. She ranted about her jealousy, how Leo had everything handed to him. Then she drew Kane's sidearm, her smile turning manic. Die, she shrieked. The gun clattered to the floor. Isabel stared down at the tranquilizer dart in her chest before collapsing. In a blur of motion, the man she knew as Leo disarmed Kane and had him in a chokehold. He ripped off a hyper-realistic mask, revealing a sharp-featured young man who complained to Julian that acting was much harder than killing and that he'd better be getting a bonus. It was Jax, the world's most efficient and expensive mercenary, paid for with Elias's bonds. Julian applauded. Kane, realizing he'd been tricked, sputtered about the destroyed data. Julian kicked at the pile of smoldering plastic, explaining that it was a decoy. The real data had been transported by the real Leo, disguised as a shipping clerk, on a commercial flight that had landed 2 hours ago. On the ride back, Julian and Elias sat in comfortable silence. The text was buzzing. Julian is so smart. The hero had like 3 backup plans ready and he didn't need any of them. I like this Jax guy. He's hot and good at his job. Julian asked Elias if he had suspected Isabel all along. Elias nodded. He explained that after Leo's death in the first timeline, Marcus's grief had seemed too performative, too violent. He began to investigate secretly but found nothing concrete. When another nation's tech mogul had tried to arrange a marriage with Isabel, her hysterical refusal had seemed suspicious. He had planned to let the marriage proceed to expose her, but then Julian had died. He trailed off, his voice thick with unshed tears. A new memory surfaced for Julian, this one not his own. It was a flash of Elias, after Julian's death, working relentlessly, his hair turning prematurely gray at the temples. He remembered Elias exposing Marcus and Isabel, restoring Julian's name, and then, with all his affairs in order, quietly taking a fatal overdose in his empty penthouse. The text confirmed it. He told everyone Julian poisoned him in their last encounter. No one knew it was a suicide. He really loved him. Julian looked at the scrolling text, his own eyes welling up. Elias sat quietly for a long time before speaking. He said he understood that Julian despised him now and he wouldn't ask for anything, only to be allowed to stay near him. He reached out, pulling Julian into a gentle embrace, whispering that he was so sorry. After a long moment, Julian reached up and wiped a tear from Elias's cheek. He asked what he was crying for. It wasn't too late this time. Elias pulled back, his eyes wide and red-rimmed, searching Julian's face. He asked if that meant he was forgiven. Julian sighed dramatically, shaking his head. He wondered aloud how this emotional wreck had ever managed to become such a ruthless operator in his first life. The text was a unified chorus. Don't ask, just kiss him. Don't ask, just kiss him. The mission was a resounding success. The president offered them anything they wanted as a reward. Julian shamelessly requested a massive grant for the Astor Group's rebuilding fund. Leo, however, simply submitted his resignation as the designated heir and announced he was going to travel the world. A week later, he showed up at Jax's headquarters with a stolen briefcase, claiming he needed help getting it back. Jax, amused by the first non-lethal contract of his career, took the job. Julian was lounging by the pool at his restored family estate, recounting the story to Reynolds. The butler nodded, then placed a steaming bowl of soup on the table beside him. He informed Julian that Mr. Vance had the chef prepare it before he left for Washington that morning and that he should drink it while it was hot. Julian, rubbing his aching lower back, gritted his teeth. He told Reynolds that Elias could drink it himself. He never would have guessed that the cool, composed Elias Vance was such a relentless, insatiable animal behind closed doors. He closed his eyes, a small smile on his face. The blue text, now so faint it was barely visible, flickered one last time before disappearing completely. The past was a dream, and this life, finally, was his own.